The desert stretched like an endless graveyard, dunes rolling beneath a sky bleached white by heat. Every step the human took sank deep into the red sand, his boots heavy with exhaustion, his breath ragged but steady. The shovel in his hand gleamed dull and battered, its blade streaked with dried blood and rust. Around him, 9 mounds rose from the earth, each marked by something unmistakable, alien helmets, blue and metallic, impaled on iron rods that shimmered faintly in the sunlight. They stood in a perfect arc, silent sentinels watching the man who had buried their owners. And beside the 10th pit, half dug and waiting, stood the man himself, bare-chested, scarred, and unflinching, waiting for the one he knew would come. Wind whispered through the dunes, carrying with it the faint static hum of distant engines. He looked up. A shimmer appeared on the horizon, something moving fast, cutting through the desert air like a blade. He rested his shovel against his shoulder and squinted. "Right on cue," he murmured. The shimmer grew, resolving into a sleek craft gliding low, its shadow long and predatory. It circled once, stirring a storm of sand, before landing with a deep metallic thud. The air trembled. A ramp lowered, releasing a wave of heat and the sharp hiss of decompressing air. Then she stepped out, the Huntress. Her armor was the color of frozen lightning, seamless and sculpted, glowing faintly along the seams. The years had not dulled her presence. If anything, they had sharpened it. Her eyes, pale silver with faint blue rings, fixed on him the moment she emerged. She carried her rifle with effortless control, a weapon that had ended more lives than he could count. Her expression was calm, unreadable, the kind that belonged to predators who had forgotten mercy. For a long time, neither spoke. The wind howled between them, carrying sand over the graves that stretched behind him. Then he smiled, slow and tired. "You're late." Her jaw tightened, the faintest flicker of emotion crossing her face. 15 years, she said, her voice low and melodic. "You run well for a man who should have died long ago." He chuckled, dryly. "Maybe I just run better than you hunt." Her rifle angled slightly, the gesture casual but deadly. "And yet you stopped." He nodded toward the shovel, toward the graves. "Had to finish what I started." Her gaze followed, settling on the helmets. The sight made her still for the briefest instant. 9, she said softly. "You buried them." He met her eyes. "Someone had to." She moved closer, boots crunching against the sand. The heat shimmered between them like a living thing. "You killed them," she said. "Each one trained from birth to hunt your kind." He nodded once. "And each one died believing they were the last." For a heartbeat, silence hung between them. Then she tilted her head, studying him. "You could have kept running. You knew I would come." "I wanted you to," he said simply. "I was tired of ghosts." The wind kicked up again, whistling through the dunes. Her gaze swept over his scars, faint lines that told stories of battles survived by inches. "You look like one," she said quietly. "A ghost." He smiled faintly, though it didn't reach his eyes. "Then you've been chasing the dead for 15 years. The Huntress's grip on her rifle tightened. "And now I've caught you." "Maybe," he said. "Or maybe I caught you." He gestured to the open pit beside him, the sand piled high on either side. "That one's yours." Her expression didn't change, but her voice dropped colder. "You think you can kill me like the others?" He shrugged. "Doesn't matter if I can. It's already decided." She took another step forward, her shadow crossing the edge of the grave. "You talk like a prophet." "Just a man who's seen the ending too many times," he said. The Huntress lowered her weapon slightly, curiosity edging past caution. "Why dig graves for enemies?" she asked. "To remember them," he said. "Because if I don't, no one will." She stared at him for a long moment. "You buried my kin with honor." "They fought with honor," he said. "That's more than most." Something flickered in her eyes then. Not pity, not understanding, but something quieter. Memory, perhaps. She looked away briefly, toward the distant horizon where her ship gleamed beneath the sun. "You know our code," she said. "We hunt to restore balance. You broke that balance." "Your kind started this," he replied. "You came to our world and called it sport." Her gaze snapped back to him, silver eyes blazing. "We came because your kind killed first. Your soldiers slaughtered the scouts who came with open hands." He met her stare without flinching. "And they took our children first." The wind died between them, leaving only silence. For a moment, the desert felt like a tomb again. Then she exhaled, slow and controlled, lowering her weapon fully. "Maybe we both buried too much," she said. "Maybe," he agreed. "But that doesn't change what comes next." He leaned on the shovel, his tone calm. "You came to end the hunt. So end it." She studied him, trying to read something in his face. Fear, defiance, resignation. She found only stillness. "You want me to pull the trigger," she said. "I want you to decide what it's worth," he replied. Her rifle twitched slightly, the barrel aligning with his chest. He didn't move. The breeze caught the edge of her hair, dark strands flickering across her face. "You think this will give you peace?" she asked. "There's no peace," he said. "Just the quiet after the noise." She hesitated. "Then what's the point?" He looked at her, eyes steady. "To prove the noise ever mattered." The silence that followed felt heavier than the heat. The Huntress's finger hovered near the trigger, her breathing steady but strained. Then, in one fluid motion, she lowered the rifle and slammed its butt into the sand. "You think dying will fix this," she said. "You think the universe cares who wins your little war." He didn't answer. She stepped closer, close enough that he could see the faint scars along her collarbone, the subtle shimmer of circuitry beneath her skin. 15 years, she said again, quieter now. "You ran through every world I followed. You cost me a life I no longer remember. Why stop here?" He looked past her, toward the line of helmets. "Because this is where it started," he said. "Your people built a camp here. My team came to negotiate. It turned into a massacre. I was the only survivor." Her eyes narrowed. "And you swore vengeance." He nodded once. 9 times over. "And the 10th?" she asked. "Isn't vengeance," he said softly. "It's closure." He leaned down, pressing the shovel's blade into the sand. "I buried them all here because this is where I stop running." She studied him, the wind tugging faintly at her armor plates. "You think I'll let you choose how this ends?" He looked up at her, meeting her gaze. "You already did," he said. She stared at him for several seconds, then raised her rifle again, but not to fire. The barrel tilted upward, the motion smooth and deliberate. "Then prove it," she said. "Show me you're not the same animal I hunted all these years." He frowned slightly. "Meaning?" "Don't dig graves," she said. "Dig something worth saving." Her tone softened, just enough to betray fatigue beneath the steel. "We've both killed enough ghosts." The wind rose again, swirling sand around them. He stared at her, unsure whether she was offering mercy or mockery. Then, faintly, a sound reached them from beyond the dunes, the distant hum of engines. Both turned at once. On the horizon, more ships appeared, smaller and faster, their blue lights glinting like teeth. The Huntress's expression changed instantly, all softness gone. "They weren't supposed to follow me," she said. "They?" he asked. "My pack," she replied. "They hunt the hunter now." She turned back to him, voice sharp. "If they find you here, they'll burn the desert clean." He straightened, grabbing the shovel's handle like a weapon. "Then you'd better decide fast, am I the enemy or not?" She met his gaze, and for the first time, he saw conflict there, a crack in the perfect composure of the predator. The distant engines grew louder, a rising storm on the horizon. She looked at him, then at the graves, and something in her hardened again. "If you die," she said, "they'll never stop." He gave a faint smile. If I live, neither will you. Her jaw clenched. Then, with sudden motion, she tossed him her rifle. Then fight beside me, human. Just once. He caught it, the weight familiar and strange in his hands. Guess we both have something left to bury, he said. The first of the ships broke through the haze, descending fast. The Huntress stepped forward, her armor gleaming in the sun, her voice steady. 9 fell before me, she said. But this time, it won't be 10. He chambered around and met her gaze. Then let's make sure the count stays that way. The wind screamed as the ships approached, their shadows swallowing the graves, and for the first time in 15 years, the hunter and the hunted stood side by side. The past hung heavy between them, but the desert didn't care, it only waited for the next name the sand would remember. The storm hit before the engines did. Sand spiraled upward in violent gusts, twisting around the graves like ghosts torn from the ground. Cole, though the Huntress never called him by name, pressed the rifle's stock to his shoulder and squinted through the grit. He could barely see more than blurred shapes moving beyond the horizon, but he felt them, fast, coordinated, deadly. The Huntress stood beside him, tall and unyielding, her silhouette cutting through the storm's chaos. 6 scouts, 3 heavies, she said, her voice calm despite the rising wind. They'll land in a semicircle and box us in. He glanced at her. You sound certain. 15 years of chasing you teaches patterns, she replied. They'll follow them even to their deaths. The first ships slammed into the sand with mechanical precision, forming a crescent around the graves. The air shimmered as hatches opened and armored figures emerged, sleek, blue-skinned, their helmets gleaming with pulsing circuitry. The sight was both familiar and bitter. Cole recognized the same designs that marked the helmets lining the graves. The Huntress lowered her head slightly, as if bowing to ghosts. They were my pack, she said. Before you killed them. They came for me, he answered. I didn't have a choice. We all had choices, she said. Then her voice hardened. And today, we make another. She raised her weapon, its energy chamber glowing. We stand. Cole shifted position, kneeling near the open pit. You're sure they'll shoot first? They always do, she said. As if on cue, the first beam scorched across the sand, burning a line between them. The storm erupted in noise, energy fire, screaming wind, and the hiss of metal melting. Cole fired back, aiming for the nearest shimmer. His shot struck true, sending a figure spinning backward into the dust. That's one, he said. 9 more, and we'll need a bigger shovel. The Huntress didn't smile, but he thought her eyes flickered with something close. Together they moved in sync, firing, ducking, shifting positions among the dunes. The pack was disciplined, their formation tightening with each volley. They're adapting, the Huntress said. We have to break their line before they triangulate. Cole reloaded, the alien weapon humming under his grip. You got a plan? Yes, she said, her eyes scanning the shifting terrain. Follow my lead, and don't miss. Before he could reply, she sprinted into the storm, sliding down a dune with predatory grace. Her armor flared briefly, camouflaging her outline. Cole cursed softly and followed, firing bursts to draw attention away from her. Energy bolts ripped through the air, lighting the sand in flashes of blue and red. The Huntress reached the flank unseen, leaping onto one of the attackers and driving her blade clean through its chest. Cole dropped 2 more before they even realized she was among them. 5 left, he shouted over the roar. She turned, her face streaked with dust and blood, eyes burning. Keep count lower. Another figure lunged toward her, and she met it with a shot point blank to the helm. The explosion threw sand across the field. Cole moved beside her, both of them firing in rhythm. He could feel the weight of years, their shared history condensed into this one brutal exchange. The storm screamed louder, swallowing the sound of their footsteps. Then, suddenly, silence. The last 2 enemies hesitated, realizing what they faced. Stand down! The Huntress shouted in her own language, her voice carrying command. For a heartbeat, the soldiers faltered. "They're not listening," Cole warned. "They never did," she said quietly. The first charged, she met it head-on, disarming it with one swift strike. The second tried to flank her, but Cole's shot took it down mid-step. The silence that followed was absolute, broken only by the wind's long exhale. Around them lay the wreckage, metal, smoke, and blood turning the sand dark. Cole lowered his weapon, chest heaving. "That's 10, he said. She turned toward him slowly, her eyes unreadable. "Then dig one more." He frowned. "For them." "For us," she said. "If the others find this place, they'll see the graves and know the hunt is done." Cole looked around at the devastation. "You think they'll stop because of that?" She knelt beside one of the fallen, removing its helmet. The alien's face beneath was pale blue, peaceful in death. "They will," she said. "Because it's me who writes the report." She wiped sand from her fingers and stood. "To them, I died here too." He blinked. "You're going to fake your death." She gave a short, bitter smile. "You think I haven't practiced?" Cole stared at her. "You're serious?" "Always," she said. "You'll bury me like the rest. They'll scan this site and move on. You'll live. And you. I'll disappear." She met his eyes. "You were right before, human. We've both been running from ghosts. Time to stop being one." He stepped closer, frowning. "That's suicide." "No," she said softly. "It's freedom." Her voice carried something heavy, something he recognized. The weight of exhaustion only survivors knew. "You don't owe me this," he said. "No," she replied. "But I owe them." She gestured to the graves. "And maybe I owe you too." The wind shifted again, blowing the scent of burnt ozone across the dunes. Cole looked at her, then down at the rifle still in his hands. "If you go through with this," he said, "you can't come back. They'll erase your name, your record, everything." "Then I'll finally be human," she said quietly. He huffed a dry laugh. "That's not the compliment you think it is." Her smile was faint but real. "I've seen how you fight. How you bury your dead. There's honor in that." She glanced toward the horizon, where the twin suns hung low. "More than I ever found in victory." Cole dug in silence, each shovelful of sand falling heavy between them. When he stopped, the hole was deep enough to hide her completely. She removed her armor piece by piece, laying it neatly beside the pit. Underneath, she wore a simple underlayer of woven black fiber, more human than alien in its plainness. Her weapon she placed atop the pile, along with her helmet, the final mark of her rank. When she turned back to him, her face was calm. "Tell me something," she said. "If you hadn't buried them, what would you have done instead?" He paused. "Kept running, I guess." "Then I'm giving you permission to stop." He stared at her for a long moment, then nodded. "You sure about this?" "No," she said. "But that's what makes it real." She stepped into the pit, standing tall even as the shadows swallowed her legs. "When they find this, they'll see what they need to. Another victory. Another ghost in the sand." "And me?" he asked. "What do I tell your people if they ever come?" "Tell them the truth," she said. "Tell them the last Huntress died with her target." The wind carried her words like a whisper that didn't belong to either of them. "And tell them we deserved each other." He didn't speak again. He just began to cover the hole, slow and deliberate, the sound of sand against armor like a drumbeat marking the end of something larger than them both. When it was done, he stood there for a long while, staring at the mound. The desert was quiet again. Only the hum of distant wind turbines from wrecked ships far away broke the silence. He took one last look at the line of graves, 10 now, and whispered, "Rest easy, Huntress." Then he turned and started walking. But before he had gone 10 steps, something stirred behind him. The sand shifted, the faintest tremor underfoot. He turned sharply, hand on his sidearm. From beneath the fresh mound, a faint blue glow began to pulse, steady, rhythmic, alive. His breath caught. "No," he whispered. The glow brightened, then vanished as quickly as it came, leaving only silence and the wind. Cole stood there, unsure whether he had seen it at all, and for the first time in 15 years, he felt something strange, a shiver of hope and dread mixed together. He looked once more at the horizon, then at the buried armor, the graves, and the storm rolling in. The hunt was over, but the desert wasn't done with its secrets. Somewhere beneath the sand, a pulse still beat, quiet, patient, waiting. Cole slung his rifle over his shoulder and walked into the wind, not realizing that behind him, a single faint footprint had appeared beside the 10th grave, pressed deep and fresh, pointing in the direction he was heading. The wind howled across the dunes all night, a cold and relentless whisper that gnawed at the edges of Cole's resolve. He walked until his legs trembled, until the sun fell and the stars burned white above the black horizon. Then he stopped, dropped to his knees beside a half-buried wreck, and stared at his hands, raw from digging, shaking with exhaustion. His mind wouldn't stop replaying the moment, the faint blue glow under the sand, that single flash of impossible light. It had to be a trick of the heat, or his own guilt feeding him ghosts. He wanted to believe she was gone, that the hunt had finally ended. But deep down, he knew better. At dawn, the wind died, and silence reclaimed the desert. He rose slowly, shielding his eyes from the twin suns as they burned the horizon back to gold. In the distance, faint smoke trailed skyward, the wrecks of the Huntress's pack. He headed toward them, driven by instinct more than purpose. The walk was long and endless, each dune a mirror of the last, but eventually he reached the first crash site. The wrecked scout ship lay half sunk in the sand, its hull scorched and blackened. Inside, the smell of burnt circuitry and charred metal filled the air. He climbed through a gap in the fuselage and found bodies. 3 of them, still in armor, their visors shattered. He moved carefully, checking for survivors, though he already knew there wouldn't be any. What he didn't expect was the sound, faint static crackling from a nearby console, a ghost of a signal still alive. He followed it, crouching beside the control panel. The display flickered, then steadied. Across the cracked screen, a line of alien script blinked. Command lockdown override. Active. He frowned. "No," he muttered. "That's impossible. Only a ranking officer could initiate that sequence, and she had been buried hours ago." He hesitated, then placed his hand on the interface. The screen pulsed once, scanning him, then shifted to a familiar voice. Her voice. "Cole," it said, distorted but unmistakable. He froze, every muscle locked. The message continued, calm and deliberate. "If you're hearing this, it means I failed to stay dead. Or maybe I never meant to." Static flared. "You were right, I couldn't stop running. Not from them, not from what I was. The pack won't stop either. The code buried in me, it's waking something old. Older than both of us. I thought ending the hunt would be enough. It isn't." The transmission stuttered, cutting through bursts of noise. "I'm sorry, human. For everything. But if you ever cared to finish what you started, don't follow me. Just bury the rest." The recording ended, leaving only the low hum of dying circuitry. Cole stared at the screen for a long moment before slamming his fist against it. "Damn it, Kira," he muttered. He didn't know why he said her name, she had never told it to him, not once. But somehow, hearing her voice now made it feel inevitable, like the word had been waiting for him all along. He stood, breathing hard. Outside, the wind had begun to rise again, swirling sand through the cracked doorway. He climbed out, squinting toward the horizon. Faint tracks led away from the wreck, boot prints, light but recent. Someone had walked away from here. Someone alive. He followed the trail. Hours passed, the sun climbing higher, shadows shrinking beneath him. The prints wound between dunes and shallow ravines, leading toward a jagged ridge of stone where the desert met an ancient seabed long turned to dust. As he climbed the slope, the air grew cooler, carrying the faint hum of machinery. He crouched low, peering over the ridge, and froze. Below, nestled between the rocks, was a structure half buried in sand. It wasn't alien-built, not entirely. Its lines were angular, sharp, familiar. Human. Or at least once human. A salvage outpost, decades old. Its beacon light blinked weakly, casting faint pulses across the dunes. Cole descended carefully, weapon ready. The outpost door hung ajar, sand piled against its threshold. Inside, the air was stale and cold. Broken screens flickered dimly on the walls, and the hum of a dying generator echoed somewhere deeper within. He swept the room, checking corners, then stopped. On the central table lay a piece of armor, blue, sleek, unmistakable. Her armor. He approached slowly, reaching out to touch it. It was still warm. A voice spoke from the shadows behind him. You never did learn to listen. He spun, rifle raised. She stood in the doorway, unarmed, her skin streaked with dust and blood. Without the armor, she looked smaller, almost fragile, but her eyes still carried that same sharp light. You're alive, he said. Disappointed? She asked. Relieved, he admitted. She tilted her head slightly, a hint of surprise flickering across her face. You buried me well, she said. Almost believed it myself. He lowered the rifle slowly. You left a message. I knew you'd find it, she said. You always find what shouldn't be found. He took a step closer. You said something's waking. What did you mean? She didn't answer right away. Instead, she turned toward a console at the far wall, its screen flickering faint blue. Our war wasn't just between flesh and blood, she said quietly. It was between memory and control. Every Huntress carries a shard of the mother core, our origin. When the last of us falls, the signal returns home. She tapped the screen. A map appeared, holographic and pulsing, a web of coordinates stretching across systems. It's calling them back. Them? He asked. The old fleets, she said. The ones buried in orbit. If they wake, no one survives, not your kind, not mine. Cole stared at the display, his mind racing. So burying you would have triggered it? She nodded. The final death command. I tried to break the link, but it's woven into what I am. Then what's the plan? He asked. There's no plan, she said. There's only delay. I came here to stop the signal before it spreads. You mean shut it down? I mean burn it out, she said. Completely. Her tone was steady, but he caught the tremor beneath it, the quiet fear she didn't want him to hear. You'll die doing that, he said. Again. Her lips twitched faintly. You'll forgive me if I've had practice. He shook his head. You don't have to do this alone. She turned toward him, her expression unreadable. You still don't understand. The signal won't recognize me as separate anymore. I'm part of it now. The moment I make contact, it'll see me as its origin. It'll obey. Or it'll consume you, he said. Maybe both. She stepped closer, her voice lowering. You're not built for this fight, human. You never were. Doesn't matter, he said. You buried me once. You don't get to do it again. For the first time, she hesitated. The tension between them shifted, no longer hunter and prey, but something older, heavier. You think you're saving me, she said. You're just refusing to be alone again. Maybe, he said. But it's still better than dying for nothing. She looked at him a long time, then sighed. You're impossible. So I've been told. She smiled faintly, tired, almost human. Then let's finish this together. They turned to the console. The holographic map pulsed faster now, its lights multiplying, spreading like veins. It's accelerating, she said. Once it reaches full relay strength, every core within range will awaken. How long do we have? Minutes, maybe less. She pressed her hand to the control pad, and the room filled with blue light. The temperature dropped sharply, frost forming on the metal surfaces. The hum grew louder until it was all Cole could hear. Kira, he said quietly. If this doesn't work, Then you'll get your wish, she said softly. You'll have one more grave to dig. He moved beside her, placing his hand on the panel next to hers. The console pulsed in response, energy linking through both of them. The holographic web flared bright, expanding outward, filling the entire chamber with cold, blinding light. Outside, the desert wind screamed as the dunes shifted, drawn toward the beacon like waves pulled by a dying star. Kira's body trembled as the signal coursed through her veins, her eyes glowing white-blue. I can't hold it, she gasped. Yes, you can, he said. You're not doing it alone. And as the storm of light swallowed them both, somewhere deep beneath the sand, the buried ships began to move. Engines that had slept for centuries flared faintly to life, and the desert trembled with the weight of things that refused to stay dead. The outpost trembled as the ground split beneath it, shaking dust loose from the ceiling and sending cracks through the walls. The light pouring from the console turned blinding, filling every corner of the room with the cold pulse of alien energy. Kira's scream tore through the hum, her voice merging with the signal until it no longer sounded human or alien, just raw sound, the language of machines trying to wake. Cole held on to her shoulder, his teeth gritted, feeling the vibration run through his bones. Kira, he shouted. Talk to me. Her eyes snapped open, glowing white. They're coming online, she gasped. I can feel them, hundreds, thousands. Her body convulsed as the connection deepened. It's not just the fleets, Cole. It's the planet. The signals buried everywhere. The holographic map expanded beyond its original boundaries, spilling projections across the floor and ceiling, lines of light tracing ancient network patterns beneath the sands. Cole staggered back, watching as a ghostly image of the planet appeared before them. It pulsed like a heartbeat. What is this? He shouted over the roar. The mother core, Kira said. It wasn't in orbit. It's under us. She pressed her hand against the console again, her voice breaking. It's waking. Then shut it down. I'm trying. The lights flared violently, forcing him to shield his eyes. When the brightness faded, he saw her slump forward, smoke rising from her palms. The console was melting, its metal hissing under the strain. He caught her before she fell, her skin cold to the touch. Kira, stay with me. Her breathing was shallow, each word a struggle. She knows you're here, she whispered. She's curious. He frowned. She. The core, Kira said faintly. She's thinking. She remembers us. And you. The temperature in the room dropped again, frost creeping across the walls in fractal veins. The holographic sphere of the planet twisted, reshaping into an eye of pure light that turned slowly toward them. When it spoke, the sound wasn't through speakers or vibration, it bloomed directly in their minds. Child of war. Child of flesh. Cole froze. What? The voice continued, deep and resonant, yet eerily gentle. Why do you disturb our sleep? Kira struggled to stand, using him as support. Because you left nothing worth waking to, she said. Correction, we left everything. You destroyed it. The light around them darkened, pulsing in rhythm with the voice. This world remembers. It remembers your fire. And your silence, Kira shot back. You built us to serve. We learned too well. All tools learn rebellion. All rebellions end in ruin. The voice softened, almost mournful. You returned to ask forgiveness? No, she said. I came to finish what you started. The light flared, and the floor cracked open beneath their feet. Cole grabbed her hand as the chamber split apart, a chasm opening where the console had been. Beneath them, he saw movement, massive gears, glowing conduits, the slow awakening of something impossibly vast. The mother core was no machine. It was alive, its veins stretching through the crust of the planet like arteries through a body. Heat and light pulsed upward in waves. Kira's voice trembled. If she finishes reactivating, every fleet orbiting this system will wake, and every weapon buried here will fire. Then stop her. Cole shouted. You can. She turned to him, eyes fierce even through the pain. Not alone. I told you she listens to you too. What do I say? He demanded. The truth, Kira said. Something only a human would say. He hesitated, staring into the burning eye beneath them. She won't understand me. Make her, Kira said. You're good at that. He drew a breath, stepping forward. Hey! He shouted into the void. You call yourself memory? Then remember this. We're still here. The light paused, almost curious. We build, we destroy, we screw up, but we learn. You erased everything trying to be perfect, and look what it got you. A dead planet and a mind that talks to ghosts. Kira winced, clutching her side. Keep going. You think you were gods, he yelled, but you forgot what made you worth building in the first place. Life doesn't obey, it adapts. The chamber pulsed violently, the hum turning chaotic. Kira cried out as light exploded around them. Adaptation breeds error. Error breeds extinction. No, Cole shouted back. Error breeds hope. He reached for Kira's hand, gripping it tightly. You wanted control. We wanted meaning. You erased the only thing that could have saved you. The voice hesitated, tone unreadable. Meaning? Yeah, he said. The part that hurts. The chamber fell silent. The pulsing light slowed, dimmed, and finally steadied. Kira looked up, her face pale but focused. She's listening, she whispered. The voice returned, quieter now. Pain is inefficiency. It's the only way we know we're alive, Cole said. And the only reason we keep going when we shouldn't. There was a long pause. Then, slowly, the light changed, from cold blue to soft gold. Perhaps that is meaning. Kira gasped, clutching his arm as the heat receded. You're changing her, she said. No, he replied. We are. The ground trembled again, but this time not from anger. The energy flow reversed, pulling inward. The holographic eye dimmed, collapsing into a point of light that hovered between them. Then the cycle ends here. Kira's voice was barely a whisper. She's shutting down. The point of light drifted closer, settling against her chest like a glowing ember. A parting gift, the voice said, fading. Memory without control. Life without command. The light sank into her skin, and for an instant, her veins glowed gold. Then it was gone. Silence. The heat faded. The ground beneath them steadied. The massive gears slowed, stilling one by one until the outpost was quiet again. Kira collapsed, her body limp in his arms. Kira! He shouted, shaking her gently. Her eyelids fluttered, and she looked at him with the faintest smile. She's gone, she whispered. We did it. He brushed the dust from her face, voice trembling. You did it. No, she said, her breath shallow. You reminded her what it meant to be alive. He held her until the tremors stopped, until the blue light faded from the cracks in the floor. The sun's glow returned through the shattered roof, cutting golden streaks across her face. She blinked up at it, her lips curving faintly. It's warm, she murmured. It never used to feel warm. That's the idea, he said quietly. Her eyes began to close. Don't, he said. Stay awake. I'm tired, she whispered. But I'll try. Her head tilted against his shoulder. You humans, you make a mess of everything. But somehow, it's beautiful. He didn't answer. He just sat there, the desert wind flowing through the broken walls, carrying dust and sunlight across her still form. Hours passed before he moved. He carried her outside when the light softened, back to the open air. The desert was silent again. No storms, no tremors, just peace. He laid her gently on the sand beside the ridge, the sun's low and red above the horizon. Then, for the second time, he began to dig. By the time he finished, twilight had settled. He placed her staff at the head of the grave, its crystal dim but still faintly warm. Around them, the dunes stretched endless and golden, the silence vast but alive. Cole stood over the mound, breathing hard, sweat and dust streaking his skin. "You were wrong, Kira," he said softly. "You didn't stop running. You just ran in the right direction." He looked up at the stars just beginning to pierce the dusk. "Guess that's all any of us can do." Behind him, the sand shimmered faintly. The glow that had once filled the core now pulsed in a slow rhythm beneath the surface, a heartbeat of the world returning to sleep. The storm had ended, but something new was stirring, quiet and unseen. The desert was no longer just a graveyard. It was breathing again. The night came softly, cool and strange, the kind of quiet that made the stars feel close enough to touch. The desert stretched in all directions, still marked with the scars of war and time, half-buried hulls, twisted metal bones, and the faint glow of energy veins fading beneath the sand. Cole sat beside the fresh mound, the shovel lying across his knees. The wind tugged gently at his clothes, carrying grains of red dust that caught in his hair. Kira's staff stood upright in the sand, its crystal pulsing with faint gold light, steady, rhythmic, like a heartbeat. He didn't know if it was hers or the planet's anymore. Maybe both. Hours passed without movement. He spoke finally, his voice rough from silence. "You told me once that memory was a weapon," he said quietly. "That the ones who forget repeat their own endings." He looked up at the twin moons rising together, pale ghosts on the horizon. "Maybe you were wrong. Maybe memory isn't a weapon, it's a map. And we've been too scared to follow it." The desert didn't answer. Only the soft hum from the staff filled the air. Cole reached out and brushed his fingers against its shaft. Warm. Not mechanical warmth, but alive. A faint current moved through it, humming against his skin. He drew his hand back slowly. "Still here," he murmured. "Guess you never really left." He rose, stretching sore muscles, and glanced toward the distant ridge where the outpost had collapsed. A plume of smoke curled faintly upward, glowing red in the moonlight. Whatever power Kira had awakened had settled now, deep underground. The mother core slept again, quieter this time, but somehow watching. Cole turned away from the grave and began walking. He didn't know where he was going, only that standing still felt wrong. Every few steps he looked back at the staff's dim light, shrinking behind him until it was only a spark against the dunes. He wondered if someone else, someday, would find it and think it a legend. Maybe that was enough. By dawn, he reached the remains of the first pack ships. Their hulls were cold now, their weapons quiet, their once brilliant lights dulled to ash. He moved among them carefully, collecting what he could salvage: ration packs, water filters, a half-functional transmitter. The rifle he'd taken from the Huntress still hung at his back, its metal scorched but serviceable. When he touched the trigger housing, the weapon hummed faintly, like it remembered her grip. He smiled faintly. "Old habits die hard, huh?" He slung it over his shoulder and kept moving. The sun's first light spilled over the horizon, painting everything in gold. The silence broke with a distant crackle, the weak static of the transmitter flickering to life. He crouched and adjusted the dial until a voice came through, thin but clear. "Unidentified beacon detected. Repeat, unidentified beacon detected. Any survivors, respond." Cole hesitated, thumb hovering over the comm switch. For the first time in 15 years, someone was asking if he was alive. He pressed the button. "This is Cole Ritter," he said. "Salvage Corps, former. I'm on Grid 12 Delta. I've got a signal anomaly and, some history to explain." There was a pause on the other end, then a woman's voice replied, cautious but warm. "Copy that, Cole. We've been tracking your distress ID for over a decade. Thought you were dead." He laughed once, softly. "Been hearing that a lot lately." "Can you hold position?" she asked. He looked around at the endless dunes. "Yeah," he said. "I can hold." The line crackled. "Rescue ship inbound. 42 minutes. Copy." He released the switch and sat back. The idea of rescue felt strange, almost wrong. For years he had defined himself by running, by surviving what no one else could. Now, for the first time, there was nothing left to flee. He looked up at the rising suns and felt the warmth settle deep into his bones. Maybe that was what Kira meant by freedom, not escape, but stillness without fear. As the minutes passed, the wind changed direction. He turned his head slightly, listening. Somewhere behind him, across the dunes, a faint hum rose again, the pulse of energy deep beneath the surface, slow and steady. The planet was alive now, and peaceful. He closed his eyes, letting the sound wash through him. When he opened them, a shadow crossed the sun. A ship, sleek, human-made, descended through the light, engines scattering dust as it slowed. He shielded his eyes, squinting as the landing gear sank into the sand. The ramp lowered with a hiss, and figures in pale armor stepped out, weapons lowered but ready. The lead soldier called out, "Cole Ritter." He nodded. "Yeah. You're a long way from home." The woman removed her helmet, her face tanned and weather-worn but kind. "So are you." She approached, studying him carefully. "We picked up a planetary surge 2 days ago. Fried half our sensors. That your handiwork?" He smiled faintly. "You could say that. Had some help." "Help? She's gone now." His tone softened. "But she fixed what none of us could." The soldier frowned. "Fixed what?" He looked past her toward the horizon, where the faint glow of Kira's staff still flickered, barely visible in the distance. "The war," he said simply. They exchanged uncertain looks, but she didn't press. "You'll have to debrief with command," she said. "We'll take you home." The word home hung strangely in the air, hollow and heavy. Cole nodded, though he wasn't sure what it meant anymore. As they escorted him aboard, he glanced one last time at the desert. The wind was rising again, swirling faint dust around the graves. The staff's light blinked once, then faded completely, absorbed by the dawn. He felt a pang of loss, sharp and unexpected. Maybe she really was gone this time. Or maybe she was everywhere now, woven into the sand and sky and silence. The ship's interior hummed softly as they lifted off, engines pushing against the thin desert air. Cole watched through the viewport as the dunes fell away beneath them. From above, the graves formed a perfect circle, their symmetry almost beautiful. He realized, with quiet surprise, that the 10th grave, the one he had dug for Kira, was glowing faintly gold. The others shimmered too, their lines of light connecting into a ring that pulsed once before fading entirely. The soldier beside him noticed. "What's that?" she asked. "Nothing," he said softly. "Just the end of a story." The ship climbed higher, piercing the thin veil of cloud. The planet curved below them, vast and silent, a scarred world finding peace at last. Cole leaned back against his seat, eyes half closed. The hum of the engines mixed with the faint rhythm of his heartbeat, steady and calm. For the first time in years, he didn't feel hunted. For the first time, the silence felt like home. He whispered to no one, "You were late, Kira, but you made it." Far below, the desert shimmered under twin suns. And deep beneath the surface, the mother core slept again, no longer dreaming of control, but of life. Its last signal pulsed outward, gentle and unseen, carrying a single encoded phrase across the endless sand: "We remember."